We thought we'd change gears this Friday and focus on the most talked about story in the world this week. 37 million users worldwide, 175,000 of them here in South Africa, are on tenterhooks as hackers continue to name and shame users of the cheaters' website, ashleymadison.com. Men and women across the globe have been searching the data, looking for the names of their partners in this unprecedented hack. In July, the site was hit by a hacker group called the Impact Team, who warned that they want the site to close down. This hasn't happened, and it's now left many South Africans and, well, people elsewhere in the world in a somewhat uncomfortable position. Now, to help us understand it all, we are joined in studio this morning by Stuff Magazine's deputy editor, Craig Wilson. Good morning, Craig. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning, Evan.
Unprecedented is the word that's been used in the media. Have we ever seen something like this happen, or is this the beginning of the brave new world?
Well, I mean, we've certainly seen hacks of this scale happen. I think that this one's gotten the attention of people because of what the data potentially reveals, right? Which is namely that you were on this website, which exists purely to facilitate affairs or extramarital relationships between people. And I think that's why it's had more attention. You know, we've seen banks and all sorts of other things hacked, but this is one that people feel particularly sensitive about.
Yeah, pretty clear why. But let's talk about the technicalities or the technical aspects of this hack. The deep web has now come into focus because of this, because this is where the information was released on. What is the deep web for us lay people?
Well, so you can think about it as a sort of equivalent of the internet that we know. You know, you open a browser window, you go to Google, you search. It's exactly like that, except that you need a dedicated browser to access it. It's called the deep web or the dark web because you need to be a little more specific. So you have to have the exact address of where you're going. You can't simply sort of do a Google search and say Ashley Madison hack. And you require a browser called Tor, it stands for the onion ring, to access it. And this is an anonymizing browser. And it's quite popular with people looking to sort of stay anonymous online. So that's, it really operates like the regular web, but you need a little bit of expertise to get to it.
The Impact Team it's a very interesting concept. The Impact Team, the moral, the sort of moral and ethical position that they've taken with this hack in particular. What do you make of it?
Well, it's interesting to see them. I mean, as you said, they've decided they wanted the site taken down. They threatened to release the data if it wasn't. It hasn't been taken down, and so they've released the data. I think ethically it's very problematic. Firstly, we've got consenting adults who, regardless of whether we agree with their actions or not, are doing something that's not technically illegal. Second, you've doubtless got people who've signed up for the service using email addresses that aren't their own. So what you risk here is a sort of false positive scenario with people who perhaps weren't actually using the site, having their email address pop up in the list of users anyway. And I think that sort of thing is problematic. When anyone decides that they can make this sort of moral decision for, as you said, up to 37 million users, I think that's always going to be difficult. It also, of course, speaks to internet security and how we often hand over our information to sites with no real understanding or idea of just how secure our data is, or in this case, isn't.
It's a very interesting one. It opens, of course, all of that. One of the avenues that now comes into focus is that of identity theft as well. There are a couple of high-profile cases in the US where they claim, no, it's not them.
Sure.
How do you deal with that?
Well, I mean, I guess for anyone who's implicated in this, I guess for the sort of general folk in the street, the worry is, does my partner go and have a look and find my details? But it's certainly more worrisome for people in positions of power, or as I saw a story yesterday online suggest, there was a man who was part of a sort of family values organization, and he was the head of this organization, and his details appear to have been found in it. I think anyone who is denying their details are legitimate on there is going to have an uphill battle, even if, in fact, they weren't the ones who signed up. That's just the nature of these things. You know, once your details are there, you're going to have a very hard time convincing people otherwise.
I see in Canada there's a civil case, 760 million. Do you expect quite a few lawsuits to pop up around this issue now around the world?
Potentially, for those who can afford it. I mean, the challenge with these things always is once the info is out there, to a large extent the damage is done. Do you really want to spend years in court against a large corporate trying to win something back, which of course would also just keep your name in the headlines all the time? I think we'll see less legal action than you'd anticipate. But it was also interesting to see Ashley Madison's response, saying we won't take the site down and we'll proceed as usual. It will be interesting to see what sort of checks and measures future sites put in place to try and reassure people that this won't happen, because it could, of course, affect online dating sites or these sorts of sites in terms of users if people are too nervous to sign up.
The friend finder sites and the like. Do you think this has been an absolute game changer in that space then?
Oh, I don't think so. I mean, insofar as people are still going to want to cheat, people are still going to use these tools in much the same way as the dark web marketplaces that have sold narcotics or illegal drugs or so on have sprung up. Every time one of them has been shut down, another one has replaced it. Unfortunately, as long as there's a demand for these sorts of services, I think people will continue using them despite any sort of concerns about security.
How do you think this one will play out, and do you see this, the rise of this type of moral hacking groups now starting to operate in other areas?
Well, I mean, we see them operating in all sorts of areas at the moment anyway, and this is why I think the Ashley Madison move was an interesting sort of precedent setter, with them refusing to take down the service. Arguably, I mean, this is the same sort of response that a lot of governments have when they talk about negotiating with terrorists, right? They suggest that they simply won't back down.
Yeah.
And I think while we may see more people or sort of more hacker groups pursuing this sort of thing, I can't imagine that many sites are actually going to bow to their demands.
Well, it's been a very interesting week, and a lot of people are rather nervous about their names and details. But Craig Wilson, the Deputy Editor of Stuff Magazine, thank you very much for joining us. Unique insights into what must have been a very interesting lot of data to go through. Thank you for joining us. Of course, for those of you that still don't know, 37 million users worldwide, 175,000 of them in South Africa. Men and women cheating on their partners while their details are being exposed after a hacker group hacked the adultery website Ashley Madison. Their tagline, of course, is life is short, have an affair. Well, what do you think about that? Our question of the day asks that, but let's have a look at some of your views around this. Zoe says, Ashley Madison is where is the list? Ashley Madison, where is the list? I think that is a legitimate question quite a few people are asking now. According to data leaked from Ashley Madison, Alabama had the largest number of cheaters. I thought that was why they have family reunions. That's funny, says Cindy. JCall49 says, if there's one thing Philadelphia should be proud of coming last in, it's the total number of members on Ashley Madison. Yes, wow, Alabama, the biggest number. Carl5 says, the Ashley Madison users who paid $19 to have their records scrubbed must feel kind of cheated, like some kind of violation of trust or something, says Carl. Gripe of the day says, getting mad at the hackers that leaked Ashley Madison user data is kind of like being mad at Batman for doing what he thinks is right. Yeah, there are a lot of questions around this. And we'll continue with it, because from the time the internet became easily accessible to everyone, the business of online dating has simply boomed. Although there have been success stories of people meeting online and having long-lasting marriages, there's also the downside to this modern way of dating. AshleyMadison.com, with their tagline, life is too short, have an affair, has come into the limelight in recent weeks after their website was hacked, of course. This week, the ethical hackers dumped the leaked information into the deep web, threatening to leave millions of cheaters exposed. Now, joining us from Cape Town is sexologist Dr. Eve to delve into the minds of this. Very good morning to you, Dr. Eve. Thank you for joining us.
Hello, Eben. Nice to be here with you.
Online dating has become an acceptable way to find a partner, but what do you think about the concept of Ashley Madison that's designed for those already in a marriage?
I think it's not a unique situation. It's just they had great marketing, and so they got to sign up 37 million people in 46 different countries. I've just written a book on cyber infidelity called Cyber Infidelity, the New Seduction, and I used them as my database. So I really got into the heart of Ashley Madison. And what I found in my research, because I looked at sex tech generally and cyber infidelity generally, that in fact the innocuous spaces like Facebook are where people are so-called practicing in cyber infidelity as well. By just having a device in our hands, we are able to engage in what is called, or what I've called, cyber infidelity. So Ashley Madison is a platform that exists, or does exist for people with a transparency which says if you want to be coming onto our site, be aware of the fact that this is for people who are married or attached or in relationships already. So there was a transparency about it, but there are many other places where people are finding to go and to interact and to do what they don't even realize is cyber infidelity.
Cyber infidelity is a very interesting concept. We see 175,000 people here in South Africa on this website alone. The number is quite big if you look at our country kind of in general and who's on the net. Are you surprised at the numbers and are you surprised at the rise of this kind of thing?
No, not at all. I found with my research that cyber infidelity is really completely different to in real life infidelity. So we're not even aware that we're committing this thing called cyber infidelity. So somebody might have posted a profile onto Ashley Madison or onto any other dating site, and their partner may not know about it because they've done it in secret. And then when their partner sees it or finds out, then the partner might say, oh my goodness, you know, you're betraying our vows. This is infidelity. While the other person says, but hang on, I'm just curious. I just signed up because I was curious. I wanted to see what's going on. So it's kind of forcing couples to have a new conversation that they haven't had before. And one of the things that are, positive, if there is anything positive around this Ashley Madison hack, is that it's forcing people to actually renegotiate their sex tech rules, to actually look at their relationships and to say, what would we define as cyber infidelity? And this is a good thing, that couples have to integrate their sex tech lives into their real lives as well.
Are we cheating now more than ever before in history? And are we ready to have that conversation with our partners?
So cheating, as I said, in real life infidelity is very different. And are we cheating more? Well, we look at some statistics and they're very vague because no one really admits that they're cheating because of the stigma attached to it and the pain that comes along with it. In real life infidelity, it could be anything between 50 and 70% of people, men and women, who are doing that. But then when we get online, I mean, it's absolutely impossible to define statistically how many of us are cheating because we don't have a definition of what it is. I have a definition of what cyber infidelity is, and that is that it's a process between two people who are in a committed relationship who engage in synchronous or asynchronous chats via email, text messages, WhatsApp, and it's always done in secret, and it's always violating the traditional values of what we consider to be relationship values of monogamy, fidelity, and commitment. And when those are violated and it's kept secret, people are going to say, oh my goodness, this is infidelity. But we're not aware of it. So therefore, many of us are doing that without really realizing that our partner might find that unfaithful.
What's the way forward for couples, you think, in the new world? And what's your advice to people when they're using these types of sites or thinking about using these kinds of sites?
I think what the scandal has brought, the hacking has brought to us, is the fact that there is no privacy. And it's kind of a contradiction because what happens is that we have a device which we're using, which is mainly our mobile device, and it's very intimate. And we're kind of seduced into the belief that this intimate device that we have in our hands is private. Now, suddenly, it doesn't feel so private anymore. This private space that you felt you could just chat with somebody has now been violated and you feel unsafe. But as Craig was saying earlier on, we're all going to continue doing that. We might have a hiccup and be a little fearful, but actually we're going to continue because this is our lifestyles. What's my advice to people? Well, I've just written this fabulous book, which is just kind of come at a timely time, I guess, where it offers a guide to watching the progression of cyber infidelity and talking to your partner about what I call the new rules of relationship. We have got to talk to partners about what sex tech is and what we consider infidelity. So buy my book and kind of get some guidance on that.
What's the name of the book, Dr. Eve, and where can we find the book?
It's called Cyber Infidelity, The New Seduction, and it's available at all major bookstores and online, and of course in my store as well, the Dr. Eve shop. So it's available everywhere and on Amazon as well.
Well, Dr. Eve, thank you for joining us. Very interesting read. I'm sure we're going to have a look at that. Maybe we can have a look at it in the books, in our book slot at some point in the future. But thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Eben. Nice to talk to you.
That's sexologist Dr. Eve coming to you live from Cape Town, talking about cyber infidelity, the rise of infidelity online. Well, it's here with us. Ashley Madison is a case in point, I suppose. But